The sun was beginning to set in the quiet town of Greenhill. The orange light slipped gently through the curtains as Ada sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Her heart was calm. It had been a peaceful day. Her son, David, had just called her a few minutes ago to check in. He was in his second year at university, studying in another city called Hilltown. Their conversation had been normal. He told her about a class he was struggling with and how he missed her food. They laughed. She told him to stay strong and promised to send him a package soon. "All right, Mum," he said. "I'll talk to you later." "Okay, my son. Take care." The call ended, or so she thought. She placed the phone on the coffee table and stood to check the soup she was cooking. That was when she heard something. Voices. She turned and stared at her phone. It was still connected. She picked it up slowly and placed it back to her ear. "He doesn't even know I'm the one controlling him," David's voice said. Ada froze. Another voice laughed faintly in the background. It sounded like a boy around David's age. "He's still sending the money?" the other voice asked. "Yes, he thinks he's being smart, but he doesn't want Mom to find out what he did years ago. So he keeps paying. I just mentioned that woman's name and he gets scared." Ada's heart dropped. Woman? What is he talking about? She held her breath and listened harder. "But what if your mom finds out?" the other boy asked. David laughed softly. "She won't. She can't handle it. She has her issues. My dad said so himself. That's why he hides everything from her." Ada slowly sat down on the couch, her hand shaking. The call suddenly ended. She stared at the screen. Call ended. 14 minutes. She had only spoken with him for 5. So what had she just heard? Her mind started racing. What was David talking about? What secret was his father hiding from her? And what did he mean by controlling his father? Her hand moved quickly. She dialed David's number again. He didn't pick up. She tried again. Still no answer. Her breathing grew faster. Her chest felt tight. That name, that woman. The way David spoke, it didn't sound like a joke. Ada dropped her phone on the table and stared into space. Her mind ran back to all the strange things that had happened in the past year, the sudden mood changes in her husband, Chaik, the odd behavior from David, the late-night phone calls, the extra money Chaik had started withdrawing. Could this be what she feared? She picked up her phone again and dialed another number. Chaik answered. "Hello, my love," he said warmly. But Ada's voice was cold. "Chaik, I want you and David here tomorrow. By 10 a.m. I'm calling a family meeting." Chaik paused. "A meeting? What's going on?" "Just come. Both of you. Don't be late." She ended the call before he could say another word. Then she sat back and looked out the window. Her soup was burning, but she didn't care anymore. Something dark had been living in her home. And tomorrow, she was going to drag it into the light. By 9:45 a.m., Ada had already cleaned the living room twice. Her hands were busy, but her mind was boiling with questions. She kept going over what she had heard from David's call the night before, over and over again. At exactly 10:02 a.m., the front door opened. Chaik stepped in first, wearing a calm smile. David followed, looking unsure, his hands deep in his pockets. "Good morning, Mum," he said, trying to sound cheerful. Ada didn't answer. She pointed to the chairs. "Sit." Both of them exchanged a quick glance, but said nothing. They sat. "I overheard your conversation yesterday, David," she said slowly. "The call didn't end. I heard everything you said about your father, about how he's sending you money because of a secret." David's face went pale. Ada turned to Chaik. "Is it true?" Chaik opened his mouth but closed it again. His calm expression faded. He looked at David, then back at Ada. "I was going to tell you, Ada," he began softly, "but I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" she snapped. "Afraid it would destroy you," Chaik said. "You remember what happened after we lost Sarah. You went into a deep place, Ada. You stopped sleeping. You stopped eating. Your anxiety got worse. I thought, if I added more pain, it would break you." Ada's eyes were sharp now. "So what did you do, Chaik?" He took a deep breath. "Years ago, I made a mistake. I cheated. Just once. And she got pregnant. I didn't know at first. She disappeared. Then one day, she showed up with a child. My child." David looked away. Ada's hand flew to her chest. "You have another child?" Chaik nodded. "A girl. She's 5 now." I've been supporting them quietly. David found out. I don't even know how. David finally spoke. His voice was low and shaky. I saw the messages. The bank alerts. The guilt in your eyes when Mum asked you questions. You were too careful, Dad. Too careful. So you used it to blackmail him? Ada asked, her voice trembling. David didn't respond. But Chaik did. Yes. He started threatening to tell you unless I gave him money. And I gave him. Every time. Ada stood. How much? David looked at the floor. Tell me, David, she screamed. Over 2 million, he said quietly. Ada gasped and sank back into the chair. What did you use the money for? She asked. David was silent. Chaik turned to him. You might as well say it now. She deserves to know. David's eyes began to fill with tears. I wasn't just keeping the money, he said, voice shaking. I was using it. For something else. Ada narrowed her eyes. David took a breath. I got involved with a group. Some friends. At first, they said it would help me relax, focus, escape stress. I started using some things, substances. Ada's eyes widened. You mean, she whispered, unable to say the word. David nodded. I got addicted. I couldn't stop. I needed more and more. That's why I kept asking Dad for money. Ada covered her mouth. I didn't want to steal, David continued. My friend wanted us to start doing things, bad things, to get money. He even said we could start duping people. I didn't want to go that far. So I just kept squeezing, Dad. And you knew all this. Ada turned to Chaik. Chaik nodded, guilt washing over his face. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought if I added this to what you were already dealing with, it would push you over the edge. I didn't want to break you, Ada. I wanted to protect you. Ada sat quietly. Her mind was spinning. Suddenly, tears rolled down her cheeks. All this right under my nose. Neither of them spoke. She wiped her face, stood up, and said in a clear voice, You both need help. Therapy. Recovery. I'm not living in a house full of secrets anymore. David looked up. Mom. No, David. Don't speak. Not now. Chaik stepped forward. We'll fix this. I promise. I'm not begging you, she said firmly. If you don't go, I'm leaving this house. I've been healing for years. I won't let both of you destroy the little piece I've built. The room went silent, and for the first time in a long time, Ada was the one in control. 3 days passed. The house felt like a shell. Quiet. Heavy. Everyone walked around like they were stepping on glass. Meals were eaten in silence. The TV stayed off. Phones were barely touched. But on the 4th morning, a car parked in front of the house. Ada stood at the door with her arms folded as Chaik and David stepped out, both dressed simply. No one said anything, but their eyes said it all. They were going. They had agreed to therapy. The Family Therapy Center was located in a quiet area called Willow Grove, a name Ada found comforting. Inside, the walls were painted warm colors, and the air smelled of lavender. A young woman with kind eyes welcomed them and led them into a round room with 3 couches. The therapist introduced herself as Dr. Neka. She spoke gently, asked questions slowly, and gave everyone time to answer. Chaik was the first to speak. He talked about the affair, how it happened during one of the worst times in their marriage, when Ada was barely speaking to him after their daughter Zara's death. He said it wasn't an excuse, but it was his truth. He cried when he spoke about the guilt and how hiding the child had eaten him from the inside. Then it was David's turn. He sat with his arms crossed at first, silent. But when Dr. Neka asked what he was afraid of the most, his wall cracked. I'm scared of what I've become, he whispered. His voice trembled as he explained how peer pressure started it all. How one friend had passed him something to calm down, and how over time it became a prison. How he felt ashamed but too deep to stop, and how, when his friend began asking him to scam people for money to keep up the habit, he panicked and chose the only option he thought was safe, blackmailing his dad. Ada sat still, listening. Her hands trembled in her lap, but her face stayed calm. Finally, it was her turn to speak. She talked about her mental breakdown after losing Zara. The dark days, the therapy, the medication, the sleepless nights. She spoke of how she fought to become whole again, and how hurt she was to realize the 2 people she trusted most were hiding so much from her. I understand why you both kept secrets, she said slowly. But understanding doesn't take away the pain. There was silence in the room. Then Ada added, but I want to heal with you. Not without you. Chike looked at her, eyes wide. You still want us? Yes. But only if this house becomes a house of truth from now on. No more secrets. No more lies. And David, she turned to her son, you're getting help too. Not just talking. Real help. David nodded slowly. I want to change, Mum. I want to stop. I don't want to live like this anymore. The therapist smiled gently. That's a powerful first step, David. They ended the session with a plan. Weekly therapy, both family and individual. David would also start a substance recovery program discreetly under professional care. As they drove home, the silence felt different. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Ada looked out the window, the wind brushing her face. For the first time in years, she felt hope blooming. But just as they turned onto their street, Ada's phone buzzed. It was a text from a strange number. She opened it and froze. The message read, You think you know everything now? Ask your husband about June 18th, 2020. Then let's see if he still looks you in the eye. Ada's heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly to look at Chike, who was smiling faintly as he drove, completely unaware. And just like that, the peace cracked. Ada couldn't sleep that night. She lay beside Chike, wide awake, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. The message kept ringing in her head. June 18th, 2020. What happened on that day? Why did someone send it to her now? And why was it tied to her husband? By morning, she was exhausted, but determined. She waited until David left for his recovery session, and then she turned to Chike, who was sipping tea at the dining table. I need to ask you something, she said, sitting across from him. Chike looked up, puzzled. Okay. What is it? What happened on June 18th, 2020? The question hit him like a punch. The mug slipped slightly in his hand. His eyes narrowed. Why do you ask? Ada leaned forward. Someone sent me a message last night. From a strange number. It said I should ask you about that date. Chike was silent. For a long time. Then, finally, he stood up and walked to the window. He stayed there, back turned, hands in his pockets. That was the day Zara died. Ada froze. What? She whispered. Chike turned slowly to face her. His face was pale. That wasn't the official date on the report, but it was the real day. I was with her. Ada's heart stopped. What do you mean? I picked her up from her friend's party that day. She had called me, said she didn't want to ride with her friend because they were drinking. I told her to wait, I'd come. But I was distracted. I took a business call in the car while driving. I looked away from the road for just a second. Ada's hands began to tremble. No, Chike. There was a truck. I tried to swerve, but it was too late. Zara didn't make it. The police came, the paramedics. They took her body. The report said it was the next morning, but it really happened that night. Ada was now standing, her voice shaking. You told me she died in her sleep after the accident. That it was peaceful. I lied, Chike said, tears falling freely now. I couldn't bear to tell you. You were already broken. I thought, if you knew I was the one driving, that I got distracted. Ada let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream. It was pain, deep, raw, unimaginable pain. You let me grieve thinking it was just fate, that it was no one's fault. I never even blamed anyone. I blamed myself every day, Chike said. That's why I did everything to keep this family together. Why I didn't tell you about David's issues. Why I allowed him to control me. I thought it was punishment. Ada collapsed into the chair, her breath short. Her hands covered her face. A storm of memories crashed through her mind. Zara's smile, her laughter, the day they buried her, the coldness of the casket. All based on a lie. Suddenly, everything made sense. The guilt in Chike's eyes all these years. His overprotectiveness. His silence. And then another thought struck her. Was that who sent the message? Chike shook his head. I don't know. Maybe someone who knows the truth. Maybe a witness. Or someone from the hospital. I've spent years trying to bury that day. Ada stood again. Her eyes were red but strong. We can't keep burying things, Chike. Not anymore. I know, he whispered. I'm sorry, Ada. I am so sorry. I believe that losing Zara broke me, she said. But this lie? This almost killed me again. Chaik reached out, but she stepped back. I need time, she said. I'll stay with my sister for a few days. You and David continue your sessions. I'll come back if I feel I still have a family to return to. She packed a bag slowly and walked to the door. David came home just as she was stepping out. Mom, he asked, confused. I'll be back, she said quietly. But both of you need to fix yourselves. As she walked down the driveway, Chaik collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. David sat beside him, stunned. What's happening, Dad? Chaik turned to him slowly. We've both hidden things, David, but hers was a wound we reopened. Now we have to fight for her. David nodded, his eyes misty. I want to make things right, Dad. I really do. Chaik placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Then we start today. But neither of them knew that the person who sent the message was still watching, still waiting, and still had one more secret to reveal. 3 weeks passed. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Chaik and David went to therapy every week, just like Ada had demanded. At first, it was hard. They both struggled to open up, especially to a stranger. But slowly, with each session, walls began to fall. Painful truths were said out loud. Guilt was shared. Healing began, little by little. But something still hung in the air. That message. Ask your husband what happened on June 18th, 2020. No one had claimed responsibility for it. No number. No name. Just silence. Until one evening. It was a Friday. Chaik and David had just returned from therapy. Chaik's phone buzzed. A new message. It was from the same strange number. This time it said, Meet me at the old hospital building. Tonight. Come alone. Chaik showed it to David. I'm coming with you, David said firmly. No, Chaik replied. This could be dangerous. I'll go alone. David didn't argue, but the moment Chaik left, he quietly followed. The old hospital building had been shut down years ago. It was dark, dusty and quiet. Chaik walked in, his heart beating fast. A shadow moved near the entrance. A man stepped out. Chaik froze. It was Emeka, a nurse who had once worked at the hospital where Zara was taken after the accident. Emeka, Chaik asked. You sent the messages? Emeka nodded. Yes. Why? Why now? After all these years. Emeka's face was calm, but his voice carried bitterness. Because I was there that night, he said. I saw you. I was the first to get to the emergency room when they brought Zara in. I heard everything you told the doctor. That you were the one driving. That you took a call. That you looked away. Chaik's mouth went dry. I didn't tell anyone, Emeka continued. But I always thought you should have. That girl, she didn't have to die. You let everyone believe it was just a normal accident. I was trying to protect my wife, Chaik said, his voice low. She was already broken. You protected yourself, Emeka snapped. I got fired from that hospital a year later. I lost everything, and I kept remembering that girl's face. Suddenly, from behind a wall, David appeared. Leave him alone. Chaik turned sharply. David, I told you not to follow me. But David walked between them and faced Emeka. My sister died. We all suffered. You think sending messages and threatening our family helps anything? I didn't want revenge, Emeka said. I wanted the truth. I wanted you both to stop pretending. To face your pain. David clenched his jaw. We already are. Emeka looked at Chaik again. Then tell the world what happened. Clear your conscience. That's all I ask. He turned and walked away, leaving father and son in the silence of the dusty building. The next day, Chaik sat in the living room with Ada. She had returned home the night before, slowly opening her heart again. He held her hands gently. I'm sorry I failed you, Ada. In so many ways. Ada reached out and wiped his tears. We all made mistakes. Even me. But we are still here. And we still have a chance to fix it. David stepped into the room. They all sat in silence for a moment, as if Zara's spirit was with them in that room. Then Ada smiled through her tears. We'll start fresh. As a family. Months passed. David went for treatment and joined a support group. He even started volunteering, helping other young people avoid the path he once walked. Ada continued her therapy, and later began helping other women who had lost children and struggled with anxiety. The family was not perfect, but they were healing. Together. And sometimes, healing starts not by hiding the pain, but by telling the truth. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones hiding the deepest pain. We lie not because we want to hurt them, but because we want to protect them. But the truth is, secrets hurt more than honesty ever could. This story reminds us that healing begins with truth, no matter how hard it is to say. Forgiveness, love, and courage can still rebuild what was broken. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more touching and thought-provoking stories like this. Leave a comment below. What part of the story touched you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, it's okay to struggle, it's okay to ask for help, and it's never too late to heal. Thank you so much for watching.